Before we begin this interaction, I would just like to say a little few words about, the forum. The forum is a non-political and a non-partisan organization founded in 1956 by the late A.D. Shroff. He was an eminent industrialist and an economist. The principal objects of this organization include educating and creating awareness amongst the public on economic affairs, on economic policies, and of issues of national importance. The forum has taken upon itself the cause of unveiling and advocating liberal economic thinking and free enterprise to deal with India's pressing challenges of economic growth, illiteracy, poverty, and unemployment. Today's webinar is a part of the forum's Global India series to shine a light on the growing stature and influence of India in global markets, which includes markets on technologies too, and the work that people of Indian origin, such as the guests that we have today and those who would be coming on this webinar series, are doing on critical fields of human endeavor around the world. We are extraordinarily privileged to have with us today Jaspreet Bindra. And Jaspreet is, as you will make out, is an amazing orator. But more than that, he's a great human. Just to let you know, Jaspreet isn't well today, but as he believes in the topic, human in the age of AI, he wasn't ready for his bot to speak to us. And he's therefore made his human presence felt on this webinar. So thank you so much, Jaspreet, for making it. And let me quickly introduce you to the audience. In his corporate career, Jaspreet has been the Group Chief Digital Officer at the Mahindra Group, a regional director at Microsoft India, and general manager at the Tata Group as a part of the Select Tata Administrative Services. He was also a member of the founding team at Bazi.com, which later became eBay India. Jaspreet works as a senior advisor for ThoughtWorks India, a senior advisor for PricewaterhouseCoopers, senior advisor for Mahindra Holidays, and sits on the advisory board for Findability Sciences, a Boston-based enterprise AI firm. Jaspreet has been recognized as the inaugural Digitalist of the Year by Mint and SAP. He teaches at the Ashoka University, is an expert faculty for Singularity University and Harvard Business School, amongst others. He's also an accredited coach. Jaspreet is an MBA, a chemical engineer, and has a master's in AI ethics and society from the University of Cambridge. We couldn't have had a better guest than Jaspreet, for this particular webinar, which is about human in the age of AI, or being human in the age of AI. Technology, of course, as we all know, presents opportunities and also challenges us to do better with it. And AI is no exception to it. And so therefore, it's very imperative for us to keep discussing how we maintain our humanness as we move with these technologies and shape the future of our society, of our nation, and of course, of ourselves. And therefore, as the Forum of Free Enterprise, we thought that it's so important for us to interact with someone like Jaspreet Bindra, who does not only approach the subject from the lens of business, but from the lens of humanity. And some of his, I'm not going to spill the beans though, but some of his concepts that he has written about extensively in the Mint, or he talks about during his public discourses, really goes to show the depth at which he is operating in the field of AI. So once again, thank you, Jaspreet, for being with the Forum on Free Enterprise on this webinar. And I, if you want to just say a quick few words before we start with your first question.
Sure. Thank you very much, Raghav. Thanks for this very flattering introduction. And it's great to be at FFE. I mean, I actually didn't know that. I knew about the history of right from the time it was formed and its ethos that it was talking about. What I was surprised by pleasantly was that it still exists and continues to work, etc. So it's a privilege to be here. I also apologize. I'm actually not feeling quite well, and so maybe I'll be stumbling a little bit, and maybe maybe not at my usual level of discourse today, but we'll make the best out of it.
Thank you, Jaspreet. So let's begin with the first question without further ado, which is from my end, I think there is this increasing integration of AI in our daily life. And, as always, humans are all about relationships and social interactions, right? So therefore, my first question is that how is this increasing integration of AI in our daily life impacting human relationships and social interactions?
I think we have probably the first question is the most loaded one of them all. I yet have to see the next ones, but this is a topic which is not much spoken about, okay, but is extremely relevant. And I think in a year or two from now, this is going to be on top of the agenda in various conversations around the world. Look, AI is an old technology. So it's been there for 55 to 60 years. Just maybe 10 years after your forum was formed, was for the first time that the word AI was talked about. You said 1956, right?
Yeah.
Oh, well, coincidentally, the first time the word AI was formed was 1956. Okay, in the Dartmouth conference by the fathers of AI at that point of time. And AI has been with us for the last 60 odd years. But only with the advent of what we call generative AI, which was 2 years back, is when people like you and me and people across the world who are not technologists, who are not software people, started noticing AI. And they were like wowed by what they saw. Because obviously it's a very powerful technology which has been baking for a long time. It's not something which has just come out of the oven right now. And while non-generative AI, what sometimes called predictive AI, etc., it permeates every part of our lives without us knowing it. Generative AI is going to become a part of our life with us knowing it. And the key difference between generative AI and other AI, big AI, predictive AI conceptually is that generative AI is formed of language. That's why they're called large language models. And the only species so far which actually uses language at scale and very well, if you read Noam Chomsky, if you read others, are human beings. And so actually, this is the only other quote unquote species which is trained on language beyond human beings. And actually, that's why us and ChatGPT get along so well. And we say please and thank you the way we would say to another human being. And obviously, that familiarity is also going to lead to many things. And there are many, many things I can speak about, but let me just speak about one aspect of it as to answer your question. A burgeoning field of something called social AI. Very coincidentally, I was honored, privileged to be when I was in Cambridge, one of my professors, who's a philosopher by training, but is in AI, called Dr. Henry Shevlin, is probably writing the first authoritative book on social AI. And social AI, a term which he's coined, in fact, is about relationships between human beings and AI. And some of those relationships can be quite surprising even now. Even before generative AI came around, for example, there was a bot called Replica, which a lot of human beings had relationships with. They thought it was their boyfriend or girlfriend or, there have been several other such. After generative AI, there's something called character AI, which does something similar. There's personal AI. And so what has started happening is that we've started looking at AI as another kind of companion in many ways. And with this great loneliness epidemic, which in my view was brought about by technology itself. And that technology was, I think, one of the most massive failures of humankind, which is social media. And social media brought out a loneliness epidemic. Rather than putting people together, it actually put us apart. And we're trying to now allay that by another technology, which is AI. And so we're going to see, just to complete, we're going to see as we go forward, a lot of excitement around this, but a lot of ethical dilemmas around this. Because how do you deal with, having relationships with AI, which could go to very deep romantic relationships. In workplaces, DEI, the term DEI, diversity, inclusion, would actually need to change to involve human beings and AI working together. and how would that work? But if you see ChatGPT and how it's evolving, and all the others too, Claude, Gemini, actually they're evolving to become your thought partners, your brainstorming partners, your co-pilots. And the moment they're those, you'll start having some kind of a relationship with them. So it'll be very interesting to see how that plays out. But there'll be very thorny ethical dilemmas around it.
Fabulous. No, thanks for setting that tone so wonderfully well, because as in economics, social relationships and economic relationships are the ones that have created economies and kind of markets around them. And so therefore there are these new markets that will emerge naturally, because now which will have a human plus AI element to it. Which then brings us to the whole question of ethicality, because as kind of we have seen, if you give markets a complete free hand, they may not necessarily result, in the most optimal, I would say, results, or give us the most optimal results. So therefore, there are some ethical considerations that and the human values that need to be embedded. So according to you, what are the ethical considerations that should be taken into account when developing as well as deploying AI technologies?
Sure.
So what, according to you, are those?
Sure. Look, I spent my last 2 years, 22 and 23, doing masters in AI and ethics at Cambridge University, and went very deep into this topic. Came out more confused than when I went in, but actually came out a little more optimistic, which is not what I had thought, to be honest.
Okay.
Because they tried to make me an incorrigible pessimist there. That's how mostly academia works. Okay, but differently. The ethics elements are numerous. It's not just one part of ethics in itself is a massive word, right? So, but if you kind of look at the top 4 or 5 issues with the ethical issues around AI, they are number one related to privacy, something which I went into great detail. And then privacy then leads to data privacy, personal data, surveillance. Privacy leads to deep fakes, and some of these other things which we've been talking about, really reading or having conversations about. There's bias, and bias can lead to a whole lot of societal discord. It can lead to wrong people, wrong elements of the community being kind of victimized, etc. Specific elements. There are issues related to plagiarism, copyright, which in a sense is related to privacy, but generative AI especially feeds upon published data, and
Yes.
sometimes that data is free, but many times or sometimes that data is also copyrighted, owned by someone, and it just doesn't really bother about that. And so for GPT-3, for example, and 3 was like 3 or 4 generations back. Yeah, GPT-3, for example, the entire internet was used to train GPT-3. All of Wikipedia was 0.6% of the training data. So you can imagine the amount of data, and this includes every book, every song, every video ever done, etc. So there are copyright plagiarism issues. Many of them are in court right now. And then there's an issue which only now has started getting highlighted, which I thought was one of the biggest ones, which is environmental degradation. Whether it's related to CO2 emissions, whether it's related to the sheer amount of water and electricity needed. In fact, for all the big boys of AI, whether it be Microsoft or Sam Altman or Jensen Huang or whatever, their number one worry is not GPUs or chips, is not compute, it's not talent, it's not certainly not money, capital. Their biggest issue is whether we'll have enough electricity to power these after 27, 28, and especially green electricity or renewable electricity. And there isn't going to be. Just yesterday, I read, and it's fascinating, that the 3 Mile Island nuclear reactor in the US, which was mothballed, is now being resuscitated by Microsoft.
Exactly.
To create green electricity. Okay, and so so there's going to be all of those issues, and then finally, obviously, there's the much ballyhooed issue, which I think is actually the smallest of the lot, which is of artificial superintelligence. With all of these guys saying that, look, we need to prepare for that. Elon Musk talking about, how, it's kind of doing all the things with Neuralink by putting chips in your brain and creating superhumans. Yuval Noah Harari talking about how the next evolution of the human species, which actually be human being plus AI, what he calls Homo Deus, after Homo sapiens. And Deus, by the way, stands for God in Latin.
God, yeah.
So there are all of those cornucopia of issues. Just to kind of go to the second part quickly is that therefore, how do we address this? Okay, the good news is that despite the massive number of issues, uh, the good news is that we've started talking about regulation, guardrails, principles in this technology much earlier than every other technology. Hopefully, we've learned from social. And if someone asks me, a parent asks me that can my 12-year-old girl or boy use ChatGPT, I'm like, absolutely, just take her away from Instagram. And so this is much safer so far, at least. And at different levels, corporate level, country level, global levels, people have started kind of meeting and doing these. So there's hope, and I'm hopeful that humanity will muddle through this. Finally, every technology, powerful technology, what's called a GPT, not the GPT of ChatGPT, but a general purpose technology, is dual-edged. It's always has. I mean, when fire came, when early woman, the early man, first one saw fire, the first reaction would have been terror, destructive ability. Okay, and so since then, every such technology has been both sides. And the best example is nuclear, where it took a Hiroshima for the world to get its act together. And we've not had a nuclear war since, which is great. But on the other hand, what that also did was that it stopped people making nuclear power, 3 Mile Island, nuclear power. And so we had global warming. Okay, and so, fast death versus slow death in many ways. And so, it's very tough to manage these trade-offs. But I'm hopeful that we've learned from many of those, and so should be able to do that in the best, most muddled way.
No, absolutely. When, as you rightly said, the general purpose technologies always are a dual-edged sword. And I mean, the Schumpeterian concept of creative destruction is, it really kind of is I think, relevant in the context of general purpose technologies, because what kind of creative destruction can you do with it, which can help humankind, right? I mean, that really matters a lot, which gets me to my next question, which is, if that kind of a creative destruction has to happen, and then, how should humans complement AI, and AI should complement humans in the context of creativity and innovation, right? I mean, it's a both way thing, because you can't abuse technology too, right? I mean, I've kind of if we see kind of various robotic companies, they're even asking, they're even preparing robots who can, kind of, if they are malhandled by humans, can go back and slap them, maybe, right? Because I mean, the whole point being that we sometimes just abuse, because we're taking the anger on somebody else as a human. So therefore, the respect for technology, as well as the technology respecting us, and therefore helping us more make creative and kind of innovation. And how do you think that can happen, Jaspreet?
I think the first thing is to dust off the 3 laws of robotics that Asimov wrote in the 1960s. Okay, which was if every robotic AI was made just following those 3 laws, it would prevent the slapping incidents that
I agree.
which you talked about. But I think one of the great things that has happened is good things that has happened is that the discussion is not this discussion is not limited to just technologists alone. That was what happened in the social era.
Yes.
It was social was made by technologists alone, and with all due respect, they have a very narrow view of the world. Okay. In this case, a lot of this discussion is being done by philosophers, is being done by sociologists, economists, and definitely technologists, scientists, and anthropologists. Most of the books that I read, papers that I read at Cambridge, I think less than 10% was written by technologists. Okay, most of the other stuff, actually, all this is being worked out, written about And that's, I think, a good thing, so that at least we're getting a much more wider view of this. And many of the prominent names in ethics AI are around this. Now, coming specifically to creativity and innovation, one of the things which we get bothered about with generative AI specifically is that it's a cognitive technology. Okay, so uh, with white collar workers like us, always thought that when technology will come, it will take away blue collar jobs. Okay, but this one is the reverse. Okay, and so the people who can make most noise, which are people like us, okay, are making that noise because it's hitting what we are supposed to do best, which is build the innovation part, the creativity part, the thinking part, the curiosity part, all those things which make our jobs fulfilling and and paying. But this has kind of changed the game. And so, one of the in your question itself, you kind of provided half the answer. Many times we think of that human versus AI
Hmm.
or human or AI. There's not an or game, it's an and game.
And game.
Okay, and so it has to be the complementary part which you just talked about. And uh, however much you empower a being which does not have consciousness,
Hmm.
does not have emotion, does not have compassion,
Hmm.
does not have curiosity. Okay, the four key things which define us as humans, and maybe there are a couple others too. The output that being will produce will be substantially subpar or different from what an entity with these three, four values would have. And it's very obvious to see. I mean, even if you write an email and AI writes an email, you can
Right.
notice the difference in like 2 seconds. Okay. Similarly, for an essay, it doesn't take long. Or similarly, when art is produced, it's super easy to know that that's an AI generated art. You just need to have a little bit of eye for it or a little bit of knowledge for it versus it. I firmly believe two things which are controversial. Okay, well, one of them is very controversial. I've written about it and I've gotten slammed for it. And I have said that hallucinations
Hmm.
in generative AI should be treated as a feature, not a bug.
Absolutely.
Okay. Most people treat that as a problem. Look, generative AI till the end of time is going to hallucinate. That's the way it's built. It's a probabilistic machine. It's not a deterministic machine. But uh, if you think of human beings, our best creativity came when we hallucinated, quote unquote.
Yes.
Vincent van Gogh, for example,
Yes, absolutely.
the guy's name I forget, who created the benzene molecule. He
Yeah.
was kind of under some substance. Okay, you can kind of go on and on. I mean, Archimedes when he was in that tub.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can go on and on, but the best creativity does not happen when you're kind of, it happened. I mean, Heisenberg in Helgoland. There's lots of examples you can have. And so I think, and by the way, there are now startups which have started emerging, which are using the hallucinatory part of
Yeah.
generative AI to create. And so we can use that. Number two is I believe that generative AI can actually help us become more creative. I cannot show this here. I mean, I don't have that ready with me, but one of the products which, just to describe it, one of the products that OpenAI came up with and was created a big stir was something called Sora. And
Yes.
Sora is a text to video, and the kind of videos which Sora throws out are just unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and one of the reasons it's not in GA, general availability, is that they're trying to figure out how to control it so that unbelievable deepfakes don't get created or uh, uh, creative jobs don't get destroyed. And as Sam Altman kind of teased Sora out on X Twitter, Kunal Shah, who's one of the big Indian entrepreneurs, kind of wrote a prompt. People were writing prompts. Sam Altman was creating immediately instant videos. And he created a prompt, which was a weird prompt because he said, sea creatures riding bicycles on a beach, okay, with wind on the beach and a drone view of that. And a most amazing video came out in 5 seconds. Okay. I show that to people, the prompt and the video. And I'm like, who's being creative here?
Mm.
Is it Sora or is it Kunal Shah?
Exactly.
Okay. Now, Kunal Shah would not have been this creative if there was no Sora.
No Sura. Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So, and we can go on and on again. Creation of, on a more serious note, creation of new proteins, new DNA structure, DNA genomes, using generative AI is creative. But it would not have been possible before because we didn't have the right tools in that sense. And so I believe that it's an and game, as I said, rather than an or game.
No, I so agree to this because sometimes human imagination feels I would say uh, it kind of gets stops because you feel that I even if I'm imaginative, there are no wheels that can make me realize my imagination or make me even visualize it, right? But I think generative AI has given those wheels to our imagination. It has given us that confidence that think of anything and let the technology take, kind of you in that direction. And I think that is such a powerful feature because it creates that very innate relationship between technology and a human to say, the human saying that I'm now going to be as creative as I can. And guess what? Now I have a companion that allows me to, kind of do this. And an excellent example of that as a combination, according to me, is like Krishna and Arjun in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna has many hallucinations or, kind of questions, right? And there is, the Arjun has so many of those that, Krishna kind of keeps guiding him through those questions, through those thoughts, and says, now imagine more, Arjun, and throw yourself in the war. And therefore, kind of move forward. So it's a very interesting, kind of what we call, the co-pilot kind of a concept. And I always call it imaginations. AI puts imaginations on wheels, if I were to use that term. Uh, so in all this, right, and this is a perfect segue to this question, which is, if this is what is going to happen, where the human imagination and AI are going to coexist in terms of putting them on wheels, how can humans really maintain their, identity, their purpose, when AI is going to perform so many of the tasks which they were supposed to do traditionally?
Just digressing a bit, the Bhagavad Gita part reminded me. By the way, Krishna uses hallucinations also.
Yes.
When he shows in his Virat Roop or
Virat Roop, exactly, exactly.
And actually, my thesis in Cambridge was about Advaita Vedanta and
Wow.
privacy in AI. Okay, and that's a separate discussion altogether. So I'm very excited by how some of these intersections can happen. I'm writing something hopefully soon on that.
That's nice to read.
But coming to the purpose identified, I think that's a very good question. Many years back, when generative AI hadn't hit us, almost 5, 6, 7 years back, I wrote something about singularity. And as most of you would know, singularity is supposedly when
Machine.
Artificial intelligence overtakes human intelligence.
Yes.
And my deal was that unlike Ray Kurzweil, who says that it's going to happen on January 1, 2042 or something 2039, it's not going to be like that. It's not going to be you're going to wake up in the morning and you find that you are second-class speech. No. Singularity is actually a work in progress, and it's happening to us right now. Okay. I mean, if I ask you, for example, how many phone numbers do you remember?
Exactly.
Was it 1 or 2? But, before mobile phones, you remembered maybe 20, 30, 40 numbers. If I ask you, can you go from BKC to Chinchpokli? Okay. You can't. Okay. You need your Google Maps. Okay. So you've forgotten rastas, you've forgotten ways. If driverless cars come tomorrow, for example, you'll forget how to drive. And so suddenly one day you will find that you're a vegetable and AI is doing everything. Okay. Is remembering for you, is guiding for you, is driving for you, is earning for you. The biggest optimistic thing which all the big tech bros have in the valley is that, bring in super intelligence, they'll using the same resources, it will create far more value than human beings ever could. The value created, divide it into universal basic income for every human being and happiness. Everyone is happy. That is so wrong.
That
And
is so.
actually, again, Yuval Noah Harari talks about it, and he puts it in a very different way. He says, you know what? Machines will be doing all the work, and human beings will be playing video games all day long. Now,
No.
I would rather, jump off a cliff, before something like that. Why? Because we will lose our sense of purpose. And one of the biggest arguments against UBI, for it AI, okay, or against universal basic income, is this fact that people want to earn their money.
Yes.
Okay, they don't want to be given grants all the time. Sounds good initially. And so finding purpose in this new age of AI is actually what I call being human in the age of AI. And there are many things to be said there. We don't have the time. But net, I think we have remained human with every new technology that has come. Agriculture was a technology. So was, everything industrial revolution. So was the IC engine. And then when more quote unquote thinking technologies started coming in, which were, calculators and computers and the internet, etc. Every time this question was raised, rather, that, what happens to us? But, what have we found? I remember as an engineering student, I was not allowed to take the scientific calculator into the room. I used to have log tables.
Log tables, exactly.
Yeah. But kids after that were allowed to. Okay. And then computers. Now, are the kids less capable and less intelligent than what we were? I don't think so. I think more. Okay. Probably more. Okay. I teach people. I know that. Okay. And teach young students. So I think we have this amazing innate human ability to absorb. If in fact, what makes us human is building technology. Okay, right from fire to the spear to whatever is a core humanness. And so I think we shouldn't be afraid, therefore, that we have invented one more technology which will take our core humanness away. No. Much like Hinduism, since we are on the topic, it'll absorb it, okay, and make it a part of us. And the way to, but there'll be certain skills, and the same ones that I mentioned. I rate curiosity the top, or compassion, or some of the other things that I mentioned are the ones which are going to help us keep our sanity and our purpose. Even as we are. I mean, frankly, we should have lost our sanity by now with all the social media explosion, but we've kind of worked through it, and we're okay. We're not that bad. It's a similarity.
Absolutely. I think my sense here is that, our DNA evolves, right? I mean, every generation kind of absorbs the pressure of that technology or adapts itself. And so therefore, that is something which, kind of is a part of evolution. I mean, and we are seeing that, right? Like 3-year-olds are much more conversant even while using a cell phone as compared to our generation in terms of using their thumbs or fingers, etc. They automatically are getting it rather than us teaching it. So it's an interesting feature. I come to the last question, and then I'll take a couple of questions that I'm seeing in the chat window, if that's okay with you, Jaspreet. If it's okay. So in terms of the last question is that how can educational systems evolve to prepare future generations for the job markets? Because we have many students here. Forum essentially goes to students, and we have many student members. And this is also a recurring question that I have in the chat window. So it's going to intersect what I'm seeing in the chat and what I have, which is how can our educational systems evolve to prepare our future generations for job markets deeply influenced by AI technologies?
Sure, Raghav. So I'll answer in two parts. Okay. The first one is about jobs itself, and I'm not going to get into details. There's a lot I've written, there's lots of videos out there for people who are interested for a detailed version. But my firm belief is that AI is not going to take our jobs.
Absolutely.
A human being using AI could.
Okay.
And I'll give you just one example. Take a software engineer, for example. A software engineer who uses GitHub Copilot or one of these tools can write code 3, 4, 5x better, faster, higher quality than a human being not using it. And therefore, the job threat is not coming from GitHub Copilot or an AI. The job threat is coming from this other human being. And so as we go forward, for us to do for us to be prepared for the jobs of the future. By the way, there's a LinkedIn Microsoft survey which says that 66% of bosses around the world will not hire unless you have something called AI aptitude, which I call AI literacy. What you see here, this AI and Beyond, the logo is a small company which I've created to build what I call AI literacy. Literacy so far was about reading, writing, arithmetic. It's going to change to reading, writing, arithmetic, and using AI tools. Okay, and so literacy, the definition is going to change. And so, we work to kind of increase AI literacy in organizations and then hopefully beyond. And so the very concept of how you study, what you learn is going to change. Okay? Now, and you have to be there for the person using AI, the replacer rather than the replacee. So that's part one. Part two is what does one do towards that in the educational system? Frankly, my very brutally frank view here is don't wait for the educational system to prepare you. Okay, that's going to take its own sweet time to change as it goes through the bureaucratic and various political, issues around it, and eventually a new education policy emerges, and that's going to take a while. Okay, despite everything the politicians are saying, you need to take charge. Okay, and you need to become first to start. I'm not even asking you to become an AI expert or an AI, trained AI person or an AI super whatever knowledgeable. No, just become AI literate. Like you became literate on the internet, like you became literate for search. Okay, like unfortunately you became literate for TikTok or whatever, Meta or whatever. Okay, no one taught you. Okay, this is the same thing. And so it's all out there. It's all mostly free. And it's your humanness in terms of your curiosity, your passion, your willingness to embrace all of these and work with these, which will set you apart. And so the onus in this case is entirely on you. The universities, schools, education systems, etc., will eventually change to reflect this, but that will take time.
Fabulous. I think it's been a great discussion. I'm seeing a list of questions here. One of them, and I'm just going to take the liberty, friends, to kind of synthesize many of this into one, so that we can give Jaspreet back some time for taking some rest, which is about the whole dimension of social inequality in technology. So there are a couple of questions which come in that will AI exacerbate social inequality, as a technology, or do you think it will, in fact, help reduce social inequalities?
It depends upon human beings. Okay. Raghav, you're aware of it. One of the things I talk about is how we need to be proactive. Maybe let me take India as a country here. Need to be proactive to actually make sure that AI, especially generative AI, is accessible to everyone. Today, the unfortunate thing is this: all of us around the webinar know about Claude or Gemini or this or that, but walk out to your press wala or whatever outside, or ask your house help, what is ChatGPT? They have never heard of it.
Exactly.
Okay. So how do we kind of bridge this together? The key is that in India, we've done it before. Okay, so everyone uses their phone for payments and identification, and so the whole digital. The genius here by Linda Milikani and others was, and the governments, was that they created digital public infrastructure. That wasn't the genius. That took huge, amazing work, but the genius was that they made that DPI as a DPG, as a digital public good, much like air or water or law and order or whatever. And so my view, and I write about it a lot, I coined this term called Jan AI rather than
Gen. That's what I was waiting for, in fact.
So Jan AI is a cute word, but basically what I'm kind of trying to propagate is that in that whole India stack, which we've already build in large language, small language models, and offer them to the population the same way that you did all the other things as a digital public good. So that suddenly you'll have a nation of 1 billion plus creators, 1 billion plus people who can seek and get knowledge, okay, which was so difficult in a conversation. And it started, People Plus AI with Nanda Nilikani, Sarvam, a bunch of these things, especially out of Bangalore. are kind of along that path. I'm yet to see, however, this becoming a national mission, the way it became with DPI, DPG. And I think this is one great way where we can again leapfrog. The digital transformation of a country happened over the last decade or so.
Right, right.
A digital transformation of, or the AI transformation of the country can also happen, and everyone can have equal access there.
Absolutely. And I think one of the key things there is, of course, what I call regional languages and conversational AI. I mean, as soon as conversational AI really picks up with regional languages, where I can speak, which is already happening to a certain extent. But if I were to say in Marathi and give an instruction as Kunal Shah gave, and if if AI could, even a small language model could throw something not as large, as beautiful as a large language, but something that is, at least appreciable to my brain. I think that would be really a revolution because people now want to talk to the machine. As we were saying, that if it's a co-pilot, if it's actually going to pilot my imagination to the next level and show the creative part of it or help me manifest the creative part of it, then if I can speak to it and if it listens and if it responds, then there's nothing like it. I mean, that would be phenomenal.
Yeah, Raghav, in fact, the prompts that you give, what we call prompts, the speak to it in Marathi or whatever, you're actually programming the machine.
Yes.
The opportunity there, because it's actually programming in your natural language. So rather than writing Python or whatever, you're writing Marathi or English or whatever. And that therefore means that potentially going forward, you could have 1 billion plus software engineers.
Absolutely. Exactly. This is a nation, and we've thrived on creativity as a nation. We have survived invasions, we have survived revolutions, and we've given the world, different ways of making the best use of humankind. So I'm very gung-ho on, kind of India and technology. I mean, the way we utilized it during the COVID crisis was unimaginable. So I think, yes, I mean, Jaspreet, once again, thank you so much for taking out time, despite of your precarious health condition, to speak to us, to share your views with us. I'm sure that this particular discussion will kind of raise AI literacy within communities that are seeing it, and more importantly, will help us look at AI, generative AI, and other technologies associated with them in a more constructive manner. Once again, on behalf of Forum of Free Enterprise, I thank you for being here. And I thank all our audiences for taking out time on a Saturday morning to listen to us and to be a part of the forums and Jaspreet's and my journey on technology. Thank you so much, and Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.
Thank you very much. Nice to be there. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hello, Swati.